Before you start decorating cookies, it's good to get your entire workspace set up. So you'll notice that in your box you have a paintbrush and a little plastic toothpick with a star at the end. It might be gold, it might be silver. You'll also have 2 each of your 4 colors of icing. You'll have a smaller and a larger bag. Your smaller is going to be what is called piping consistency. So it's a little thicker. It's going to do your outlines, any words or details. And you'll also have the larger one, which is flood consistency. So what that means is it's perfect for creating those big spaces. Once you've outlined, you put the flood in the middle. Those are those awesome videos that you'll see on Instagram where the cookie suddenly fills up and it's just so satisfying to watch. Well, I have to tell you, it is actually even more satisfying to do. You're going to find out. So what we'll do, you might notice, mine are pretty good, but you might notice that on one side, if they've been sitting for a little bit, that you'll have a little bit of a line of color where some of the color, this one kind of is, you'll see the color kind of wants to seep to the bottom. All you want to do is just massage the bag a little bit, just kind of mix it up. When you add water to the royal icing to get the consistency that you want, sometimes if it sits, like when you're driving it home or if it's shipped to you, the water wants to move down. You see, now it's all sorted out and mixed back up. So the water wants to move down and take a little bit of the coloring with it, and that's okay. So we're just going to shoosh our bags here. You might even notice it on the white because your white icing will have a little bit of white color in it just to brighten it up. It's usually most apparent on the saturated colors like blacks and reds. So I set my icing off to the side. Before I get started, what I like to do is make sure I've got everything. So I use a small plate, and I'll show you why in a minute. If you have any binder clips, or these are sewing little mini wonder clips, those are going to come in handy. If not, no worries. I usually take a little paper towel, and that's what I will decorate my cookie on. This way, if I need to move it back to its tray, I'll usually set all of my cookies that I'm working on at one given time on a cookie sheet with a piece of parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, you can use a paper towel or anything, or you can just put it straight on the cookie sheet. But this way, once I've decorated it, I don't have to touch it. I can just kind of lift it up and then move it to the cookie sheet to start to dry without getting in my fingers in any icing. The other thing that might be helpful for you, if you have it, it helps if you are working on multiple cookies at once to have a fan blowing on the cookies that you are waiting to dry. Colorado weather is so nice for drying cookies, so it's not as big of a deal as if you lived in like Louisiana or something. But if you have even just a box fan that goes in your window, just make sure it's one that's very clean. You don't want any dust or little bits and bobs of anything that was in your fan to blow onto your cookies. So just make sure it's a very clean fan if you use it. And you can set it to blow on your cookies and they will dry a little crust faster, which means you can start the next part of decorating. So for right now, I'm going to scoot this away, and I am just going to grab this dinner plate for right now. Okay, so you will notice that your bag comes without one of those metal tips that you might have seen when people decorate cakes, or you might have used the metal tips in a piping bag. So this is called a tipless piping bag. It's nice because we can just snip off the end and decorate with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some sharp scissors and just nip the end. I'm going to try and nip it a little too small. So you're gonna see if I nip it a little too small, which I think I did. Oh. Well, my icing is cooperating with me a little bit more than I wanted it to. But a lot of times if you do it too small, it'll start to kind of grow a little thing here. Try and make it do it anyway. Oh, not showing you. It'll kind of grab onto the piping bag instead of making a nice line. And your line will be too thin and hard to work with and do funny things like curly cues. So if that happens, all you need to do is cut it a little bit bigger. And I get a nice line that's three-dimensional. See if it'll, a nice, three-dimensional line that does what I ask it to do. So the biggest mistake that I see people make, and honestly the biggest mistake that I made in the beginning of making cookies, let me see if I can get a little bit better light on us, is that they take the piping bag with their consistency for piping, and let's say this is my cookie I'm on. They get right up to the edge of the cookie and their piping bag is down here by the cookie. And if you see, my line is kind of wavy and it's not even, and I'm trying to follow along, but I lose a lot of that 3 dimension that you saw in this line up here. So when I do a cookie, I don't get a nice barrier like this is for the icing when we flood. Let's see if we can see the difference here. You can see how this is not as 3-dimensional at all. And this is a nice strong line right here. And it's a pretty straight line. I wasn't even trying very hard, and it's nice and straight. And that is the trick with this piping consistency icing. So let me show you this on a cookie. Let me find a spot for this. Now I usually have an extra paper towel just for grabbing the end. And I forgot to grab one, so I'm getting one now. So before I start, it might have a little bit of stuff coming out here. I just do a quick little shoosh. And I like to have my little plate so that my icing bag can kind of sit there with the tip up. Actually, let me do a heart. So you'll see, oh, and I also use this just to kind of squeeze a little bit, just to make sure that the consistency is good before I start to pipe on a cookie. So I'm gonna touch down to anchor, and I'm lifting up away from the cookie. So I have a string kind of coming out of the piping bag, and I'm just laying that string down on the cookie. And that will help me get a nice, perfect line. And it's a nice, pretty heart. Now you see, you might, I hope you can see, this little dot here. I can just take my toothpick And then I wipe it off with my paper towel and just get that edge. So you see that I have like a nice even line. And if I tried to draw a heart like right next to the cookie, it would not be that even or consistent. Making a straight line is hard work. And then I move. Okay. So you see my nice pretty line and my fail line. So make sure you're always lifting up. Remember, it is going to stay connected to that piping bag. So if I'm going to flood this cookie now, sometimes I like to give it a little bit just to kind of crust up a little bit. But your piping consistency is going to dry quicker because it has less water in it. And for my flood icing, I can cut a little bit bigger hole, but I don't cut too big of a hole because then it goes crazy and you're having to chase it down. So what you want to do is just follow along. And it's okay if you don't get right to the edge because I'm going to show you how we're going to fix that. Sometimes it might be easier not to get right to the edge. It's a little funky right now because I have my little fail heart in the middle. Once you go around the edge once, you can move a little faster. You can squeeze a little harder. The goal is just to fill in. And that's where your toothpick is going to come in. I'm taking my toothpick and I'm just going to kind of shoosh. Just real gentle. Shoosh it to the line. If there are any air bubbles, I just poke them and shoosh. Shoosh, shoosh, shoosh. You can shoosh as much as you want. If I didn't have the fail heart, the bad heart in the middle, I could have done a little bit better job and I probably have to shoosh a little bit less. But you want to shoosh right away because once it dries, you have got what you've got. And so you see I have that nice, pretty flooded area. So this is a great time to add things like sprinkles, what's called wet on wet designs. And I'll show you that in a minute. I'm going to actually put that in another video. So these are kind of big, so I might put those. Just one of the huge ones. Oh. I'm trying to keep my head out of the video, so I'm bumping in a little bit more. I'm not looking as well as I would normally. Yeah, I'm going to do the whole top. So you've got your pretty sparkles, and you'll have cups of sprinkles to work with. These are the easiest way to do fancy decorations because they are all done for you, all the little sparkles and prettiness. So you've got your first cookie all decorated and beautiful. So check out the next videos for a few of my other favorite techniques for once you've flooded one of these. There's some wet on wet techniques that we're going to talk about, as well as the Spider-Man heart and a nice lacy heart. We're going to do the latte cup and the letter and some calligraphy. Lots of fun stuff, but each will be in their own separate video after this one so that it's easy for you to just look at the techniques that you're interested in. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.